A permission defines the type of access that is granted to an object. An object can be identified with a security identifier or object attribute. The most common objects assigned permissions are NTFS files and folders, printers, and Active Directory objects. To keep track of which user can access an object and what the user can do is recorded in the Access Control List, or the ACL, which lists all users and groups that have access to an object. Settings are often used in Active Directory are the account lockout policies, which can be used to prevent hackers from repeatedly trying a username and password until they get in, known as a brute force attack. These policies can be used to limit how many unsuccessful logins within a specified period of time. Here are the settings for the account lockout threshold. This one is currently set to 3 invalid login attempts. This section gives a quick overview of password policies, including how long a password needs to be, if it is a complex password, and how often the password must be changed. Make sure you set the minimum password length to at least 8, but 15, of course, is much better. The set of policies, including auditing, which is the last part of the AAA model. For Windows, auditing is controlled through group policies. Before auditing is to be done, it must first be enabled. Here, audit object access is being enabled for success and failure on accessing an object. To audit NTFS files and folders and printers, it is a two-step process. You must first enable object access. Then you specify what you want to specifically audit. Troubleshooting authentication issues. Authentication issues are a common problem that everyone has to deal with. The simplest and easiest mistake for users is forgetting their password, which then needs to be reset. A common but easy mistake to make when typing a username or password is to have the caps lock on or the number lock key on. Other items you should check include, when typing in your username and password, always check the caps lock and num lock keys first. Make sure you have the correct language defined and that the keyboard is operating fine where all the buttons click properly. If the time is off, authentication can fail. If your computer is no longer part of a domain or is no longer trusted, you will not be able to log into the domain. In Lesson 3, these are a summary of the skills that you learned. A workgroup is usually associated with a peer-to-peer network in which user accounts are decentralized and stored on each individual computer. When you create a local user account on a computer running Windows 7, it is stored in the Security Accounts Manager, SAM, data is a database stored as a registry file. A user account enables a user to log on to a computer or domain. As a result, it can be used to prove the identity of a user, which can then be used to determine what a user can access and what kind of access a user will have. Associated with a user account is the user profile, which is a collection of folders and data that store the user's current desktop environment and application settings. The Credential Manager allows you to store credentials such as usernames and passwords that you can use to log on to websites and other computers on a network. Authentication is the process of identifying an individual, usually based on a username and password. After a user is authenticated, users can access network resources based on the user's authorization. Authorization is the process of giving individuals access to system objects based on their identity. Auditing is the process of keeping track of a user's activity while accessing the network resources, including the amount of time spent in the network, the services accessed while there, and the amount of data transferred during the session. Active Directory is a directory service and technology created by Microsoft that provides a variety of network services, including LDAP, Kerberos-based and single sign-on authentication, DNS-based naming and other network information, as well as a central location for network administration and delegation of authority. A Windows domain is a logical unit of computers and network resources that define a security boundary. A domain uses a single Active Directory database to share its common security and user account information for all computers within the domain, allowing centralized administration of all users, groups, and resources on the network. A server that is not running as a domain controller is known as a member server. A domain controller is a Windows server that stores a replica of the account and security information of the domain and defines the domain boundaries. To help organize objects within a domain and minimize the number of domains, you can use organizational units, known as OUs. Like user accounts, Windows computer accounts provide a means for authenticating and auditing the computer's access to a Windows network and its access to domain resources. A group is a collection or list of user accounts or computer accounts. Group policy provides the centralized management and configuration of operating systems, applications, and user settings in an Active Directory environment. A user right authorizes a user to perform certain actions on a computer, such as logging on to a system interactively or backing up files and directories on a system. A permission defines the type of access that is granted to an object. An object can be identified with a security identifier or object attribute. An account lockout policy specifies the number of unsuccessful logon attempts that, if made within a predefined amount of time, may hint of an unauthorized person trying to access a computer or the network. To help protect against someone guessing a user's login password, users should change their passwords regularly.